Well, hello, Matt.
Why, hello, Kathy. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a while since we've been on air together.
It's been a while since I've been here because I took a little bit of time off over the summer.
You did, and I heard that you went somewhere really fun.
I did go somewhere very, very fun and interesting. And
Did you go to Disneyland?
I wish I had gone to Disneyland. That would have been... I don't know if it would have been more fun. It would have been equally fun and exciting.
Okay, so if you didn't go to Disneyland, where did you go?
I went somewhere with a lot of animals, as you can see, because I took these photos.
You took all of these?
I did. I took every single one of the
Wow.
photos that you're going to see. I took. Well,
It's
that's
beautiful.
a lie because there's a little bit of science-y photos to explain things. But for the most part, I took all the photos.
Wow.
But yeah, have you ever seen a picture of a bird like this?
I haven't. I mean, I've seen lots of pictures of birds, but I can't say that I've ever seen a bird with blue feet.
Well, they are famous because they are only found in the place that I went to. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about this place.
Okay. What's the place called?
The place is called the Galapagos Islands.
Ooh, I think I remember learning about this in my science classes growing up.
Yes. And I went to a place called the Galapagos Islands. So, yeah. So the Galapagos are known for having a lot of these interesting animals.
And is that you with the turtle?
It is me with a turtle.
Oh, is that a turtle or a tortoise?
It is actually a tortoise.
Tortoise,
It's not
okay.
a turtle. Yeah. So turtles live in the water and tortoises don't. So these are giant land tortoises.
So tortoise is on the bottom and turtle's on the top.
That's a sea turtle on the top, yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, so we went to the Galapagos Islands. And you said that you have heard of the Galapagos because of...
Of my science classes growing up, yeah.
So in that science class, what did you actually learn?
It's been a long time, that's all I can say, but I remember learning a lot of really interesting things about evolution with these animals.
And probably the person that you learned about was this guy right here.
Is it Darwin?
This is Charles Darwin, exactly. So Charles Darwin is famous for having studied in the Galapagos, but he was not this old kind of fogey guy when he went there. He was actually 22 years old.
Wow, that's young.
Right? Isn't that weird? And he went on this scientific expedition. So back then, a lot of countries were kind of going out doing a lot of exploring and creating colonies and things. So they wanted to go on this scientific expedition. It was supposed to just be 2 years long, and it ended up being 5 years.
Wow.
And they traveled basically all around the world. So it was called the Voyage of the Beagle. It was actually the second voyage of the Beagle.
Did they eat bagels on the Beagle?
I really wish they did.
I hope they did.
I do too. Totally. But one of the cool things is if you follow the way they went, they traveled a lot on the ocean, right?
I can see that. They went all over.
And they literally went around the world. And if you've ever seen a globe, the Pacific is really, really big. It's long. And so this is the 1800s. They don't have refrigerators. They don't have really great ways to keep their food. And so that was one of the reasons why they stopped at the Galapagos Islands, to sort of stock up for that trip going across the Pacific.
But it sounds like they stayed there a lot longer than expected.
They stayed there, interestingly, they only stayed there for about 5 months.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird? But 5
Interesting.
months is kind of a long time.
It is a long time.
Yeah.
That's almost half a year.
Exactly. But what they did do is realize that, wow, the Galapagos are kind of a cool place to be. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about why the Galapagos are such an interesting and kind of different place than anywhere else in the world.
Ooh, I can't wait.
So this is the Galapagos Islands.
Okay.
So one of the things that you'll notice about them is it's a bunch of different islands, right?
Yes, I see a lot of them. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's all these islands right here.
Yes.
And do each of them have different animals in each of them that are unique to their own island?
Yes, they do. And we're going to go into that in a second.
Okay,
But
okay.
before we talk about the individual islands, we're going to talk first about just the location and why, in general, the Galapagos have so much diversity and such a weird population of animals.
Cool.
So we are talking about this area right here. Okay, so that's where the Galapagos are. So if we go a little bit closer to this, I want you to notice that, do you see how there's kind of lines that go through the Galapagos?
Yes, and are those is that the equator?
It is.
Ooh, so it's really hot there.
So one of the things that people think about when they think about the equator is, so this is the world, so where that equator line is, see how it's all red?
Yeah.
And that means that it's, generally speaking, it's warmer at the equator than if you were at like the Antarctic or the Arctic.
Right.
Right? But if we look a little bit closer at the Galapagos, the area around the Galapagos, this right here is the Galapagos Islands.
Wow, so it's a lot colder.
Yeah, right? Weird.
That's
considering
bizarre.
It's literally on the equator.
Is there like a reason for that?
There is. There's a really interesting reason. So this right here is a map, a very general map of a lot of currents, ocean currents. So do you know what an ocean current is?
Yeah, it's kind of like the way that the water kind of moves, right?
Exactly. So if you can imagine water that comes from the Arctic, is that going to be warm or cold?
It's going to be really cold.
It's going to be really cold. And if
Yeah.
it comes sort of from the equator-ish area, it's probably going to be a little bit warmer,
Right.
right? So around the Galapagos Islands, we have warm water currents, like a bunch of warm water currents that kind of just meet right around the Galapagos. And we have a bunch of cold water currents at the same time. And one of the things that you might feel sometimes even standing in a room is that things that are warm generally rise, they're higher up, and things that are cold sink.
Right.
So that means that you have deep cold water currents and shallow warm water currents. So when you look kind of at a cross section of the Galapagos, up on the top you're going to have warmer water, and then deep down you have cold water, and they're currents, so they're moving.
Yeah.
So you have warm water that goes one direction and cold water that goes the other direction.
Oh my goodness. And then is that kind of showing how the cold water starts rising around the Galapagos?
Up. Yeah,
Wow.
when it hits the islands, it's going to move up. But what it does is it brings with it very rich, nutrient-rich water from deep, deep, deep in the ocean. So there's tons of nutrients around the waters of the Galapagos.
Right.
And that's why, like, the ocean life around there is, there's just so much
Just like
life.
thriving.
Thriving, yeah. And you can grow a lot of really interesting creatures because of that.
Yeah.
So there's something else that I want to show you before we get into those animals about the Galapagos. So looking back at those islands, one of the things that you'll notice, especially on that really big island, do you see like those, they kind of look like pimples?
Yes.
Do you know what those are?
Are those volcanoes?
They are, the volcanoes. So the Galapagos are actually known, they're an archipelago, and that means it's a group of islands, and they're volcanic. So the way that the Galapagos were formed is this really interesting concept where, do you know what lava is?
Yes. Isn't it like really hot, molten, like rock and stuff like that coming from underneath the earth?
Exactly. And so that's interesting the way you put it, where it's molten rock, because when it cools down, it basically turns back into rock, right? And it basically, if there's enough of it and you pile it all up, it'll turn into an island,
Right.
right?
So is that what happened here?
Exactly. So you have these hot spots, meaning you have like this big pool of magma that's kind of underneath the Earth's crust. And it's a hot spot because there's like a little crack or an opening where the lava kind of starts pouring out. And after it pours out, it forms a little volcano, but it forms an island.
Aw.
Okay.
Cute little island.
Isn't that a cute little island? Now, do you know about plate tectonics?
Yes. It's like the different plates that are kind of like across the world, and basically sometimes they like rub together, and like there's a few different ways that they rub together, but it sounds like certain ways that it moves can like create like land masses, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So they can create land masses. In this case, they're just kind of moving. So this isn't the border of any of them. It's just in the middle of one of those plates, those tectonic plates, but it is moving. And in this case, when the crust moves, oops, you have a volcanic island. When the crust moves, it moves that island with it, and then a new volcano will form where that hotspot was. So the hotspot is really deep in the Earth's
Got
crust.
it. Okay,
And it doesn't move.
Okay, so that makes sense. So basically, when the plate is moving, it's taking the hot spot with it. Is that right?
It doesn't move.
Oh
the
no, okay, I
hotspot
see.
with
Oh,
it.
I see. Okay, so it's taking the first volcano and it's moving the volcano,
Yeah.
but then the hot spot's staying in place, and it's going to create a new
Yeah.
volcano when there's new like rock or earth above it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like a conveyor belt, right? Like a conveyor belt of squishing this hot rock from below and then creating this volcano.
Yeah.
And so after millions of years, you have this chain of volcanoes.
Wow. So is that what happened at the
And
Galapagos
so that's what
then?
happened. And it actually is not the only place in the world where it does this. So when you're looking at these, you have the Canary Islands, the Comoros Islands, Cape Verde, and then actually on the bottom, like right in front of you, actually, do you recognize this chain of islands right here?
Ooh, I do. That's Hawaii, right?
That is Hawaii. So the Hawaiian Islands are a really, really famous chain, and you can see that it's a chain. Right?
It is.
So way over there is actually Midway, and it's
Okay.
technically part of the Hawaiian Island chain.
So then I guess my question for you is, because I love Hawaii, I've been there quite a few times. I know the Big Island is still active
Yep.
because there's still magma and stuff flowing. And also another question is with these plate tectonics, how many years go by before it creates a new volcano?
So technically no years go by, because if you imagine in Hawaii is still, like you said, a volcanic island. And do you remember, like, just a couple years ago they had like these huge volcanic explosions that were threatening homes and things like that?
Yeah.
The other thing they talk about with Hawaii is there's actually already another island forming that they've already named, which I actually don't remember what the name is, but it's ongoing. It's those hot spots keep going. So it's not like, okay, it stops and then you like move on to the next island.
Yeah.
It's a continual thing that keeps going. But what is true is that this process is millions and millions and millions of years old.
Yeah.
So like the Midway Islands, those small ones on the end are the oldest islands. So that's actually something that's really interesting, because when you look at the Galapagos Islands, depending on if you have a young island or an old island, the older islands are going to have had time to break down.
And it's going to have so much more greenery and stuff, right?
Yes.
Because what I can compare this to is that Kauai is the
Yep.
garden island, and
Yep.
there's so much greenery and beautiful stuff over there.
Yep.
And then I believe it goes, the Big Island, right? It goes Oahu, right? Or Maui.
I think it's Oahu, Maui,
Yeah,
and
and then the Big Island.
And then Big Island.
Yeah.
And the Big Island, as we know, is, first of all, it's the Big Island because it has not had time yet to break down. And there's a lot of places on the Big Island that look a lot like
this one.
like this one.
And guess what? When I was in Hawaii a few years ago with my friends, we did a night hike to the volcano, and it looked just like this.
See?
And we were literally feet away from magma and lava. It was so cool.
Wow. So like you could have been burned if you weren't careful.
Yes, but we kept a safe distance.
Okay, good.
We were very safe about it, but it was a very cool experience. And we went at nighttime, and there's no lights around that area because they
Yeah.
can't inhabit it yet,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And you just look up and you just see all these stars, and then you see glowing lava over there. It was so cool.
Isn't it so cool? Yeah. Volcanic islands are super, super cool. And I think that there are places in Hawaii that look a lot like these places. And these pictures, let's get rid of us so we can actually see these pictures a little bit
Yes.
better. These are all in the Galapagos, but you can sort of see the stages of the breakdown of this rock, because at the beginning, that first picture that you're looking at, it does look almost like it's flowing, but it's hard rock.
Yep.
And then when it starts breaking down, it creates a very, very nutrient-rich soil, and then you're going to start being able to grow stuff. Just like you're
Right.
saying on Kauai, it's a very green, lush island. It's a lot older than the Big Island because it's had time to break down and build up all the plant
Absolutely.
life, right?
It's so cool.
Yeah. So what it means is that when you go to the different islands on the Galapagos, first of all, you're going to see different soil types and different colors of the soil based on whatever kinds of minerals were in that lava
And
at
wow,
the time.
you can even tell this like sand/soil is so nutrient rich just by the color.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Amazing.
iron and manganese in it, and that's me, my shadow. But I just thought it was such a cool red color because you don't really often see that like on a beach.
You
like
don't,
that
especially in
red.
California. It's usually like white or yellowish sand, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of times when it's that white colored sand, it's actually broken down shells, as opposed to this, which is broken down rock, like it's broken down volcanic rock.
Right.
You're also going to have like black volcanic rock, which if you were in Hawaii, they have like a black sand beaches.
I've been to Black Sand Beach in
green
Maui.
sand beaches. Yeah, they
Yeah.
have different colored sand beaches, and it's because whatever was in that volcanic rock is going to turn it into these like kind of cool colors. So this is Rabida Island. This is kind of more of a yellowish colored, but this is a newer island, so as that you can tell because it still looks like that flowy lava.
Right.
Here's a black lava island. And then you start seeing things breaking down, but you can still see those lava formations. And then you're going to have places that where it's totally broken down, and you're going to be able to have different plant life growing there.
That's
And
beautiful.
Yeah, so it's really, really rich in plant life, bird life, marine life. So I wanted to show you some of the pictures of some of the animals that we saw there.
Yeah, let's do it.
So do you know what that is?
Is that a bird?
It is. It is not a pterodactyl, but yes, it is a type of bird.
Okay, let's see. Let's analyze this. So I see a beak.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
I see a little bit of color right here, and I'm going to guess. Is this some sort of seagull? Or pelican?
It is a pelican.
Pelican. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that's a pelican. And it's amazing how many pelicans were there. And the cool thing about the pelican is, do you see how here, you can kind of see how like flappy this is?
Yes,
Right here?
kind of like in Finding Nemo when the pelicans are like, mine, because they have that extra
Exactly.
space to get their food, right?
Exactly. There's a ton of bird life on the Galapagos that are seabirds. So it means, like a lot of the birds that we have here, they eat like kind of bugs and like seeds and things like that. They fish. And we have a lot of birds that actually will be able to dive into the water to catch fish. which
It's
is
so cool seeing that.
so cool to see, exactly. Here's another one that, what do you notice about this guy?
I noticed that the wings aren't really full.
The wing, it's not just that the wings aren't full, the wings have basically started disappearing.
Yeah.
So it is a bird, but this bird cannot fly. So it's called a flightless cormorant.
Is there
Weird,
a reason why?
Yeah, the reason why is because there's no need to fly because this guy fishes and swims. So he dives down and he's a really, really good swimmer, but there's absolutely no need for him to fly.
So is that kind of like an evolution process type of thing? Like maybe back in the day, like
That is
hundreds of
exactly-
thousands of years ago or millions or whatever, they used to fly, but then over time, since it's such a good swimmer and it kind of adapted, it didn't need as much feathers or as much wings as it used to have, right?
That's exactly right, yeah. So adaptation meant that why bother spending all that energy making wings when you're not even going to use them, right?
That's
We don't need to do
fascinating.
that.
Wow.
So then it's going to evolve into not having wings that can fly and instead evolve feet with flippers and this really sleek kind of body type so that it can swim really well.
That's so cool.
So that's a flightless cormorant. And this is called the Galapagos hawk. And they're endemic. Endemic means they're found only in a certain place, so they're found only in the Galapagos. But the cool thing about this, the reason why I wanted to show you this picture, is that this picture is not zoomed in. So, have you ever been really, really close to a raptor? A raptor means a bird that is like a hunting bird, like an eagle or a falcon.
Not really close now because they're usually so fast.
They do not like being near people. Except this guy. And the reason why is because we're in the Galapagos Islands, and the Galapagos Islands are very remote, and for the most part, people don't really live there.
Right.
So 97% of it is actually a national park that's like uninhabited.
Wow.
So, before it turned into a national park, there were a few people that were living on the islands. And so they kind of were grandfathered into that. But other than that, like, so many of these islands that we went to are completely uninhabited, which means these animals really never learned to be afraid of humans.
Right.
And then they turned it into a national park, so it's always been protected. So humans have never really
been able to hunt or anything like that.
And so they don't need to be afraid of us.
So then for this picture, did you kind of like go this close and go like that? Were you like this close to it or like back a little bit farther?
I'm going to show you.
Oh, okay, I can't wait.
A little bit of a video.
Okay, let's see.
So this is the path that we went on.
Oh my gosh, you did get so close.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
And they were just kind of looking at us and
just kind of observing,
yeah. Just looking at us, and they really did not care what we were doing, which
That's
is
amazing.
so unusual for birds.
Oh my gosh, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting?
Yeah, you wouldn't see that here in California.
Never. The other kind of cool thing is that we got really, really close to nesting birds because weirdly, a lot of these. Oh, actually, okay, before we get to the nesting birds, that is a Galapagos penguin.
Oh, it's so cute.
It's the only penguin species that's found north of the equator.
Wow.
And it's only found north of the equator just because the equator goes through the Galapagos.
Yeah.
So it's found just slightly north of the equator.
Yeah.
And it's only able to do that because of those cold waters that we talked about.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that's a penguin. We also have these are called frigate birds. So frigate birds have...
Oh, whoa, what is that red thing hanging from their beak?
So that guy is
Or
a
gobbler.
male. I know, right? It actually will blow it up to attract females.
Wow.
And the reason why I have two pictures is these are actually two different species of frigate birds. Do you see how it's like kind of slightly shiny and there's a slight green tint on one of them? Mm-hmm. And then on the other one, there's a slight purple tint.
Yeah.
So the purple one is actually a majestic frigate bird, and the green tinted one is called a great frigate bird. So they're two different species.
Wow.
And we did get very, very close to those guys. And that is a frigate bird chick.
Oh, it's so cute. You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit?
So fluffy.
Oh, it's so
A
fluffy.
marshmallow.
It reminds me a little bit of the porgs from Star Wars.
Yes.
Right? Like the same color and everything.
Now that you say that, I'm like, I wonder if they were like inspired.
I think they might have been because like the face is very
Yes.
similar, just the beak's a little different, you know?
Yeah. And
That's
they're just
adorable.
so fluffy. And right here we have. So this is a blue-footed booby and it's chick.
Oh, that's the one that picture that we saw earlier, right?
It's not the same picture. It's actually a different bird, but
Because
it's
didn't
the
you
same
say
species.
didn't you say it was a blue-footed
Oh,
booby
sorry.
too?
Yeah, it's the same species.
Same
Not
species,
the same,
okay.
same actual individual. But
Got
yeah.
it.
But one of the things I want you to notice that I think is so funny is that this chick is literally just sitting on the dirt because that's where these guys make their nests, just in the dirt. And we can just walk right up to them and they kind of just look at you and then just do their own thing. Like they
Aw.
don't care at all.
They're so cute.
They were so cute. So this is another shot of that fluffy little chick trying to get. They're always hungry, so they're trying to get some food from mom. There's another blue-footed booby, and I just like it because their feet really are that blue.
Amazing.
It's like because in nature you don't.
It's like
really,
so vibrant.
Yeah, in nature you don't really find blue things except for that. Like it's just so interesting.
Maybe every now and then a poisonous frog.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. And there is an example of a diving booby. So that's what they do is they dive straight into the water, and you can see on the far end he actually caught a fish.
Wow.
That's what they eat.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You said that you heard of the Galapagos because of Darwin.
Yes.
And Darwin is famous for his finches. So this is one of his finches.
Wow.
The thing about the finches that I want you to notice is the beak. So I don't have a lot of finch pictures because they all in my opinion, look very, very similar to each other. So they're
Right.
not super exciting. But yeah, so that's one of Darwin's finches. But the thing that most people don't know is Darwin actually was more inspired by this guy. And this is a mockingbird.
Wow.
So the mockingbird is actually what gave him the idea of sort of evolution and how animals in different places can either look alike or look different.
Right.
Because he actually studied a lot of the mockingbirds that were on the coast of South America and then kind of compared them to the ones that were in the Galapagos. So this is one of Darwin's mockingbirds.
Wow. And when you took this picture, was the mockingbird mocking you?
Well, pretty much everyone and everything mocks me. So I'm going to go with a yes. But the interesting thing I do want to say about this mockingbird is, again, not afraid of humans. And this particular little guy, the reason why I'm so close to him is because we were going on this short little hike and he kept following us. And he was like literally on the ground, kind of just like following us. And we were, hi, little guy. What are you doing? And he just was so curious about what we were doing.
So cool.
So that was very, very cool. And of course, we have sea lions everywhere. Everywhere. And sea lions also very cute.
Aw, is that a baby?
It is a baby,
Aw,
and
so
it was like very much wanting to get some milk from mom. So he got milk from mom.
Aw.
Did you notice how awkwardly they like waddled on the sand? Like, I just think it's so funny how awkward they are. But the cool thing is in the water, I have a video in the water. They are so... It's not the greatest video because I am not the greatest underwater videographer.
Wow, they're so majestic.
Right?
So smooth.
So smooth, so sleek, so friendly and curious. And you'll see another one kind of will come up to us in a second. Because they just kind of hang out with us whenever you go snorkeling.
So cute.
Yeah, so they're like puppies. And they really are like puppies.
And then so when you were in the water right there, it must have been pretty cold, right? Because of the currents?
Very, very cold water. So I'm actually wearing a wetsuit.
Okay.
We went in July and August, so in the middle of summer, it was cold.
And like, what would you say was
very
like the
cold.
water temperature?
I don't know what the temperature of the water is, but I was wearing a wetsuit, like a full wetsuit. So, long sleeves, long pants.
Was it like a 4.3 or?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, like millimeter. Do you know the millimeter?
Yeah, I know, but I don't know what the millimeter
Okay.
of my wetsuit was.
Yeah.
But I can say that even wearing my wetsuit, I think I was okay in the water for maybe 45 minutes.
And then
I
you
was
just
like,
got too cold.
I need to get out
Yeah.
of the water because I am cold.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like you get out and everyone just has goosebumps and it's just like, you're shivering. But yeah, it was cold,
Absolutely.
very cold water.
And then so the water is cold, but is the land pretty hot?
I
Or
wouldn't
is
say
it-
hot because, when the water is that cool and you have like ocean breezes and stuff. So it was very temperate. It wasn't that bad, but it was still like
Warmer than the
shorts
water?
And, oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And it's still shorts weather.
Okay.
Yeah. But just not like 100 degrees. Like
Right.
you think of when you're like right on the equator in the tropics, because it wasn't like that at all.
Yeah.
And here's another video that I wanted to show you because the other thing about that area is that because you have such rich ocean life, it attracts larger ocean life who want to come and eat the other ocean life. So.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
It
Are those killer whales?
God.
They are
Under the
killer
boat.
whales that
Oh my
went
goodness.
right under our boat.
Wow. They're so close.
Yeah, it's the closest that even the guides said that they had ever been to a killer whale. And it was so scary
Amazing.
because you can see them under the boat and you're just like, please don't tip us over.
Yeah. Don't come up for
Don't come up, right?
Just go like another 5 meters, you know?
You could tell that they were, and then I actually have another video. This guy, I think, was basically checking us out because you can see him sort of turn
Being
and,
like really curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they kind of come and just like look and see what you're doing.
That's so cool.
So he was kind of circling us.
Amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Thing that's ever happened.
Incredible.
And it's a little bit scary because we're in like rubber dinghies.
Yeah.
Right? So they easily could have tipped us over if they wanted to. But I mean, I think killer whales are just
kind of doing their own thing.
they're doing their own thing. They're not actually interested in eating us. They just wanted to see what was going on.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing video.
Right? So close. So yeah, we got pretty darn close to those killer whales. And then, do you know what these are?
Are those iguanas?
They are.
Ooh.
So the only place in the world where you're going to find marine iguanas.
Right here?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's kind of cool because A, there are so many of them.
Oh my gosh, there's a baby on the head.
So and it's
So
actually a little
cute.
lava lizard sitting on his head. But
Aw.
yeah. And then the cool thing about these iguanas is they basically get their food. They eat algae. So they swim in the ocean, in that cold ocean.
And so they actually can swim.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really weird because normally you don't think of reptiles as wanting to be cold ever.
Yeah.
So that's why they kind of just sit there on that like black lava just to warm up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Amazing.
another kind of close-up picture of him. Do you see he's got that salt kind of crusted on his face? It's just dried
and
salt.
it's almost like obviously I'm sure evolution had to do with this, but it's like they can like camouflage into the environment.
They look
almost, right?
just like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're walking and you won't see them, and then you like look closer and you're like, there.
You're like, I just saw an eye blink. Okay, there it is.
Yep, exactly.
That's cool.
And then probably the most famous resident of the Galapagos
The
is
tortoise.
the giant tortoise. Yeah. So we got to see a few of those, which was really cool.
And they live a long time, right?
They live for hundreds of years. These
Amazing.
big ones, exactly. And so we went up to the highlands. So tortoises, they're interesting because they live up in the highlands, and then sometimes you'll find them in the lowlands, and they're like a little bit smaller. And it depends on which island you're on. They'll look different.
Right.
So you have ones that have longer necks because they're eating more shrubby things, and they're usually smaller. And then, like you can see here, it's a very rich, wet, lush environment, and so you're going to get like bigger ones. And so yeah, we got to get pretty
Oh my
darn close
gosh,
to those
that's
guys.
amazing.
So yeah, that was my trip to the Galapagos.
Wow. And you're wearing the same color as the turtle. You're camouflaging with them.
I'm trying to hide. Yes, I'm trying to camouflage.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, what an amazing trip.
Yeah. So it was very interesting, and I can easily see why Darwin was inspired when he got there. There's just so much to look at and to see and to learn.
Amazing.
So yeah.
So cool. And then, so out of all your trips you've been on, because I know you've been on a lot of different trips to a lot of different places, how does this one rank? Is it like in your top 10 favorite trips of all time, or like what are you thinking?
I always have a hard time when people ask me, like, what's your favorite trip, or like, where do you rank things? Because if I say that it's ranked first, that means something else is not first. And I don't like to say that because everywhere is interesting.
And you have like different experiences that you treasure at
And
each
they're
place.
all
Yeah.
so different. But I do have to say that this one is, I think because of the scientific history of it,
Mm-hmm.
it does put it pretty high up there. And I'm a nature lover, so I prefer going to nature as opposed to cities.
Oh,
And
me
there's-
too, 100%.
Yeah, there's so many uninhabited places in the Galapagos, and you don't find that really ever anywhere in the world, which
Absolutely.
is really special. It's so great to have someplace that's protected in that way. So yeah, I encourage you to go. I encourage everyone, if they have a chance, to either go or just like read up about it. There's a lot of movies and documentaries and books about the Galapagos. I would highly encourage you to learn more about it because it's so interesting.
It is. And then one more fun question.
Yeah, of course.
What was your favorite animal that you got to encounter on this island?
Ooh, okay. My favorite animal. Well, my favorite animal encounter, I think, is different than my favorite animal that I encountered because I think my
Okay,
favorite,
so let's have the two answers.
okay. I think my favorite animal encounter was the orca.
The orca.
Yeah, because it was
Amazing.
just such this heart-pounding special experience that like really doesn't happen to very many people. So
Like
that
once
was-
in a lifetime type of thing.
Yeah, that was very, very cool. My favorite animal, maybe the giant tortoise, because I think that they're so kind of majestic almost. They're so, they're old. You know, that one that I'm sitting in this picture, he's probably maybe, I don't know, 150, 200 years old, which to me is just like, you've seen some things.
It's incredible to think of how long their lifespan is compared to a lot of different animals, you know?
And just to give you a little bit of history, remember we talked before about Darwin going on that really big long sea voyage across the Pacific?
Yes, for 5 years, right?
And they stopped at the Galapagos, kind of on their way to cross the Pacific. One of the reasons why they did that, and one of the reasons why these tortoises actually are endangered and kind of so well protected right now, is because these tortoises they used to use as a food source. So this is back in the early 1800s when there was a lot of like ocean exploration going on, and like I said, they didn't have refrigeration. These tortoises can live up to a year without eating at all.
Wow.
So what they would do is they would take one of these tortoises and flip it upside down and put it in sort of like the hull of their ship, and it would just stay alive, and they would keep it. And so when they would want fresh meat a month into their,
voyage,
they would just eat these tortoises.
Wow.
And it got to the point where, because there used to be hundreds of thousands of these tortoises on the Galapagos, and right now there's been like a huge conservation effort, and so they've had breeding programs and they've been trying to up the numbers. Right now I think there's less than 20,000 on the entire Galapagos archipelago. So it went from that many, and it went down way smaller number than that before they started breeding them again.
Wow. Well, I'm happy that they're taking the proper measures to keep them safe and have those programs going. That's great.
Yeah, because it's such a cool animal.
Amazing.
So.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for sharing your amazing trip with us.
For coming along on my journey.
Of course, it felt like I was there.
Next time, maybe you should come along with me.
Oh, I would love to. I'll be there in a heartbeat. You got it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.